Thanks for clicking on the video. Hit us with a like on Facebook, a subscribe on YouTube, a follow on Instagram. You can find us at Homie and the Dude. That is at Homie and the Dude. Thanks again. Enjoy the video.
Welcome everyone. This is episode 25 for Homie and the Dude. And we're here today, really excited to have Danny Williams, who is a former GB Olympian, our first Olympian on the show. So we're really, really psyched about that. And
it's a big one.
And honored to have an Olympian on the show and a Commonwealth Games gold medalist. So we will be with you in 1 second, Danny. But before we get to you, we want to give a big shout out to our sponsor, Veast.kitchen. Veast.kitchen is a killer vegan option in Bristol, vegan carryout or delivery. They deliver on Thursdays and Saturdays, so check them out at Veast.kitchen. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. It's very, very nice vegan food.
100%.
And last thing I'll say is big shout out to our familia, our group of followers and supporters. Thank you guys for following us. We've had a big growth spurt. We may talk about this later on in the podcast or at the end. A huge growth spurt over the last couple of weeks. So thank you very, very much. And as always, we'd like to extend out and offer for you to hit us with the Holy Trinity. The Holy Trinity being: one, share any of our posts or our podcasts anywhere you want on any social media platform that you frequent the most. Second is like and follow our Facebook page. And third, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It all really helps. Thank you. All right, Danny Williams.
What's up, dude?
Welcome, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. Pleasure. Thank you.
No worries, man.
Dude,
Just got back from training, it sounds like, and we're able to join us. So thanks a lot, man, for coming.
So, dude, I wanted to ask you a question. So, been reading a bit of like your blogs and things like that, and been checking out like your stuff. I wanted to start off by asking you. You follow some Stoic philosophy, and me and Tom wondered how much of their philosophy within maintaining like almost like a neutral headspace with terms of like not feeling much joy, fear, pain, and like not letting those things override you. How much of that has been helping you with your judo practice over the years?
I got into Stoicism about three or so years ago. And it was really random how I came across it, because I know it's actually in that time period it's become quite popular in the like I don't know, the self-help genre of reading. You know, even if you go on like you know, I've got an iPhone, so Apple Books, it's like authors like Ryan Holiday have become quite popular in that thing. It was totally random how I stumbled across it. I've always been interested in history. I was reading about the history of the British Navy, and I just stumbled across the word Stoicism, and I'd never heard of it. So I Googled it and then kind of read everything on Wikipedia about it. And then off the back of that, I ordered the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, which was beautiful, but didn't really break it down. And then I read, I think it was How to Be a Stoic by Massimo Pigliucci. That was my kind of first modern book on the subject. And I just fell in love with it. And, you know, for me, I was an emotional young man. I was very angry. And kind of going back to how I would use it, Stoicism's not about kind of being just emotionless. It's about how do you deal with those emotions. Yeah. Particularly before judo contests and judo competitions, I used to get myself really pumped up. And what I found with the Olympic qualification process for judo, you have 10 tournaments a year. So you're always looking forward to that next fight. You're always looking forwards to the next weight cut, to the next competition. And it did help me a little bit, just kind of to stay in the day and just concentrate on what's happening. And it made me realize that, you know, you're not gonna, I knew this stuff anyway, but it kind of just helped me with my approach a little bit to, you're not always going to feel the same at every different tournament. When you do 10 tournaments, some of them you're going to feel really good and up for, and then others it's like you're not going to feel good and up for. And it's kind of just accepting that, and then learning how to deal with each scenario and learning your triggers a little bit better. And, you know, I don't claim to be a Stoic. It's just something I like reading about I like reading about the subject, and then just kind of pillaging little bits from that and to use in my day-to-day life.
You know, what's interesting is we read a little bit about it just to prepare for today. And so our background is both of my parents are Greek. So I didn't actually realize that it originated with the Greeks. My whole perception of Stoicism was that it originated sort of with the Romans, with Marcus Aurelius, actually before Marcus Aurelius with Seneca. I've heard Tim Ferriss talk about it a little bit in his podcast, and he's sort of a proponent of it. And so there was that. And then the other thing that we thought was there's a lot of similarities between Stoicism and Buddhism. So Buddhism is very, very much about, accepting whatever emotional states are, whatever sensations there are, fear, happiness, all of that, and just being okay with all of it. And it's sort of, it like you said, it doesn't deaden out, like you're not not a person that doesn't feel. You're a person that understands those feelings and contextualizes it all without it sort of encompassing your moment that you're in. So yeah, that was a really interesting pickup for us as well.
Yeah, it was one that, yeah, there were so many similarities, and I like what you said about like picking pieces out of it and using it within your life. When I was traveling through China, I met a guy, and he was telling me he's a Zen Buddhist, and he was telling me a bit about how he practices, and because with modern day stuff going on and him working within a modern job in a modern industry and things like that, he found that the best way for him was just picking and choosing aspects and then doing, for example, like longer stints of meditation at holiday time. But for him, it was picking those smaller philosophies, smaller practices, and utilizing those to build his version of what he liked to call Zen Buddhism. And I think it's a great way to go about looking at any philosophy, really.
Yeah, and the thing I liked the most about Stoicism, it was like, particularly being a sports person, which in the grand scheme of kind of what is important to a human being, it's probably right down the bottom almost. But but it encourages you to socialize and be a part of your community. And I'm no master of philosophy. I don't pretend. I almost take a layman's interest. I just enjoy picking up a book and reading about it, and then nicking a few ideas from. Where was I going? Yeah, and that's kind of to someone that hasn't read a lot on the subject. And I actually put this in a blog article. I remember watching Jimmy Carr, the stand-up comedian, and he was talking about kind of some of the airy fairy philosophies of like, how do I know I'm not a butterfly? Well, like Rover, you twat. Like,
yeah.
It's not, and it's not that. It's hugely practical. There's nothing you kind of read in Stoicism, you think, well, that doesn't make sense. Everything seems to make sense and be grounding. And actually, I think I don't know whether it's to someone that hasn't touched on the subject. Philosophy does just seem this kind of airy fairy spiritual thing that is not really going to benefit anyone. But even if you kind of go back to the father of Western philosophy, who they claim Zeno of Citium to be the father of Stoicism, but again, he was heavily influenced by Socrates. If you actually go back and Socrates didn't write anything down. Most of our stuff comes via Plato and Xenophon, but it's all really practical stuff that would just help you in your day-to-day life.
Yeah, very much so. Dude, I got a question for you. Certainly in the Buddhist philosophy, there is an element of meditation that helps to, if you can use the metaphor of in your training for, let's say you're training for judo, you go to the gym and you learn some technical aspects of it. You have your conditioning aspect, you have your dietary components of it, but it's building your judo practice. If we look at the ability to be more observant and more with whatever's happening, the contention is that meditation is that gym. Meditation is a way to develop, to strengthen your ability to be more resilient in whatever the circumstances are. How much or little meditation have you explored in your life?
Again, I haven't gone vastly into it. I do regularly do it. I do 3 minutes or so at a time. And for me, it just kind of helps me reset a little bit. It helps me just to connect with where I'm at. Again, like, left unchecked, I can be quite an emotional person. I can be almost, and they talk about this stuff in Stoicism, consumed by desire. I want to do well. I want this. I want to do that. And it's like, well, hang on. It's like you might want it, but what's actually happening? Particularly in judo, I'll use a judo example. There's regularly a break in the action. For example, we do fight on the floor, but if it gets inactive down there, the fight is stopped. We're stood up. We go back to our lines, and then we fight again. And for me, what I like to think in that, it's like, well, I can't live too much in the last exchanges. I need to know what's going on. I need to register what my opponent's doing. But actually, all that matters now is this next exchange.
Yeah.
And for me, and I've felt this in tournaments. I've come off worse with feeling pressure and things like that. And all that's constructed in people's heads. It was certainly constructed in my head. So and so's come to watch me. I've been training my whole life for this one event. This, instead of actually just thinking, I'm fighting this person, they're right-handed. What do I need to do to go out there and beat them? And actually, when you think about it, it's such a simple process from a sporting scenario. And I think there's an American football coach, Bill Walsh.
Yeah, Bill Walsh. Yeah, he coached the 49ers back in the day. And he was the first. He was the first to do the what do they call it? It's the shotgun offense or something like that, which was the offense that basically it was a no huddle offense. That's what they called it, which then was very much what you're talking about. They would just sort of keep play would end, they'd line up again and go. Play would end, they'd line up again and go, and they'd be like real time. It'd be Joe Montana was the quarterback, and he would be reading the other side. So Bill Walsh is very well known.
Yeah, that's cool, because I think he called it the process, didn't he?
That's right.
Like, don't focus on the outcome, focus only on the process and things. And it's like, actually, when you strip it down, it does make total sense.
It's totally true. And it's hilarious. You bring that up. We had a conversation yesterday about that. With every aspect of life, it's often that you set yourself goals, you look at the whether you call it end result, the achievement, the possible success, whatever you want to call it, it's always out there. And if you think about that, it often makes the journey seem more rugged, more hard. It feels, like you said, in some cases more difficult, and it can cloud clear perception. Like for you, in your case, being like, how do I need to deal with this guy? You might be worrying about who's in the crowd or whatnot, but for example, for us, we're thinking about what we want to be doing with this podcast or this show or what we're doing. And the conversation we had yesterday was pretty much, we need to ground ourselves, rethink it, work at the next step, think what our next step is. And, again, something that I really like that, Stoicism that I read and what you've just said is that, there's often with fighters, when you watch anything from mixed martial arts to Brazilian Jiu Jitsu to judo to whatever martial art, if you're looking at, the moment someone gets what I guess we would call like in their heads about the exterior factors of the fight, not what's in front of them, it often becomes an issue and it often causes problems. And you can almost see it within sometimes tension of movement. You can see it within emotions, whatever it may be. And in some cases, it can be a downfall for sure.
You know what's the irony, Nace? Like back in the day, I remember it also with cornermen and coaches, let's say. So in jiu-jitsu, you won't necessarily have a cornerman that's you have a cornerman in between. I guess in between rounds, you'd have coaching going on in between rounds. I don't know if I guess they wouldn't call it a cornerman because it's not really a ring, as it were. But we used to reward people that were really like passionate and really like, and a cornerman that was like yelling at you and saying, you gotta dig deeper. You gotta take, like, everything's on the line. You gotta go. That now has been changed with very, very calm, take a deep breath, focus yourself. All right, this is what's happening. This guy he's leveraging your left side. Just give one instruction, that type of thing. And all of that has contributed. And we also get very, very concerned and worried. We see it with an MMA fighter. His name is Robert Whitaker. He comes into the ring sometimes and he starts yelling. He's from, I think he's from Australia. So he's a Kiwi. He's a Kiwi, yeah. So he has that element of, really kind of amping himself up. But for us, we're like, oh man, I just hope he's not too emotional right now because it's going to take away from his fighting. Yeah.
I think that comes down to the individual as well. Yeah. It's, for me, the more calm approach works because I have, like I said, I was a very angry young person. It's like, it doesn't take a lot for me to kind of get pumped up. So actually it's like my problem that I had when I was younger was that I would boil over regularly. So actually containing myself. But then you have other people that's, their nerves affect them differently. So they do need to get pumped up more. Some people are too calm, and then they go out there and then they just get out-fought because the person in front of them is too intense. I think it's a really individual thing. Even like, and that's not the problem. I don't think Stoicism is a problem in itself. It's more people's approach to it. It has to be individualized. It has to be individualized.
100%.
And I also going on that point, kind of where you're saying about being in the moment as well. I think that's why as well, for particularly for me as an angry young person, it was when I was doing judo, it was the only time I was in the moment. It's like I would always live in my own head. But you can't afford to do that when you've got someone trying to smash you into the floor, or trying to arm lock you, or trying to strangle you, or for other martial art, like if you're boxing, to get punched in the face, if Muay Thai, if you're going to get kneed, anything like that. And I watched, have you seen Kingdom on Netflix, the MMA like fictional series?
No, I'm not. I
It's
didn't know that was MMA. I thought it was a different thing. Oh wow.
No, yeah. So Kingdom, it's like an MMA thing, and it's a little bit dragged out in the end. But I thought the first season was very, very good and really on point. Actually, they've had a load of ex-MMA fighters joining.
How did we miss this?
Yeah.
How did we miss this?
Yeah, I mean, it gets a bit out of hand in like seasons 2 or 3, but the first season especially, I thought was really good, and kind of, judo's a little bit different from a lot of the MMA stuff that I've read or people that I've known. It's like they kind of get it on point with how it is in those gyms. But the dad in it says, he's being the dad who is the trainer comes back to fight. And I recall him saying in an interview, it's like, because when you're stood in the pocket in a fight, nothing else matters. And I was kind of, I remember him saying that, and I was thinking, that's right. And rest of his life is kind of fucked. But when he's in, like, he's a very good fighter, and when he's in that moment, like he said, it's just it's almost bliss.
Do you know what? I really like that. It's something, and it's why I think a lot of athletes and people who compete in things that come with a level of danger or a level of needing to overcome obstacles and things like that. So you could go anything from like free running parkour to motocross, to skydivers, to combat sports athletes. And for me, like I would say for me, I'm a skateboarder, and I find the exact same thing. There's not ever a time in my life that I can find the same level of like concentration and clarity and like being in the moment as when I'm like flicking a board in midair and having to think about when I need to put my feet back down to catch it, how I'm moving, the momentum, balance, like all that kind of stuff. And and it's interesting. I think I'll class myself, I'll say we, not putting myself in the same category in you in any shape or form, but we people who enjoy sports that come with some sort of, I guess, danger, consequence, exactly, often find that in those moments, that's where all of the beauty is, where you're so focused. And I love that there's very few things in life that ever replicate that. That's why so many fighters that retire sometimes come back, or in some cases will wish that they could come back for the rest of their lives. And I mean, look at Mike Tyson. He's a great example of that happening right now. He wants to be back in there right now. And I think, that pocket of headspace, that pocket of clarity really is almost like a weird kind of like drug, a hormone drug, almost an experiential drug of like a moment of existence that you try and replicate.
There's just another thing, Danny, that I thought what you said was really interesting, that is a build on, so that Bill Walsh concept of the process and just being here now and doing what you can to control this part of the process and not letting yourself, get too, certainly you can think about the end goal here and there. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but to be obsessed with that then also takes away from the happiness of the journey, right? The journey is like the thing, and people talk about it all the time, but it's like, if you have been on a long trip you know, you don't talk about when you got off the plane to get back to where you came from. Or if you've been on any kind of like long journey, it's those moments along the way that are what are memorable. And oftentimes it's the hardest ones that are super memorable. Like the biggest challenges that you overcame, like early on in training camp, or, you know, leading up to the actual event. And so I think that's really important for all of us to, because I know certainly for me, it sucks when you are, even if you achieve the goal, if that's the thing you've been obsessing about all along, it feels kind of empty once you got there, you know?
Always,
Yeah,
always,
yeah.
always. So one for me was, you know, when I fought at the London Olympics, I'd been doing judo for 20 years already. And I don't think I realized that, probably aside from like when I was a kid and I didn't do competitions, and, you know, I was doing judo because I thought I was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle or something like that. You know, as soon as I started competing, I don't know if I can ever look at any time before then and think I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it for enjoyment's sake. And my dream was to always be Olympic champion. It still kind of is. And you know, I can, when I went to the London Olympics, I was still very much at a developmental stage of my career.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't have got a medal, and I didn't. But to me, it was an utter failure because I hadn't won gold. You know, because that obsession had always been there. And, you know, like, I was not of the level to be winning, like to be in that handful of group, top handful of group of lads in the weight category in the world. I just wasn't. But, you know, but it hurt me. It hurt me. And I had to make some really big kind of realizations and evaluations off the back of that. And I did. I realized it's like I didn't enjoy any of it. I travel around the world, and it sounds a bit weird, but I enjoyed it all after. Like when I looked at it, and I kind of looked at my friends that were still living in a small country town that we all grew up in, and it's like, hang on, I've had some amazing experiences, amazing life-changing experiences now, and I think I've been able to appreciate that a lot more since you know, that day at the end of July in 2012.
Retrospectively.
Yeah. So, dude, you said, I just caught there that the dream is still alive. The flame is still lit. Talk about that, man. So you did the 2012 Olympics. That was in London. There was a 2016 in Brazil. 2020 has been now. I don't know has it been pushed back to 2021? What were they doing with that?
So at the moment, it's taking place in July 2021, and
okay,
you know, for me, there's a lot of athletes struggling at the moment, and, you know, I think if this world situation would have happened before London, I'd have been in the same boat as them. I wouldn't have been in a good spot at all mentally. So I hope to God that the games does go ahead next July. But for me, you know, so I missed out on qualification for Rio. I got close at some stages during the qualification process, and, you know, again, with the benefit of hindsight, I should have moved up to the high weight category after Rio, but I didn't. I chose to stay at 73 kilograms, which, you know, in the end became crippling to make, and I didn't perform really this Olympic cycle. I beat some good lads, and I strung a few all right wins together, but I wasn't getting near the level that I needed to qualify. And September of last year, so September 2019, it just became apparent that, you know, I didn't want to make the weight anymore. Physically, you can always make it, but mentally, it had run its course with me. And looking at the results that I wasn't getting, it made it a bit of an easier decision.
Yeah.
And, you know, I kind of had a couple of months where I wasn't doing a lot of judo. I did some weight training. And then I started feeling good, and I was kind of like, well, actually, I've given up my entire life to this, and I'm from a point of finishing 73s, and I wasn't in a good spot with that, and I thought that was it. I was done. To 8 weeks later, thinking, well, actually, now that I don't have to do all these crazy diets and things, I'm really enjoying this. Then fast forward a few months, so I kind of thought, well, I'll get through Christmas, and then a few kind of for the one of the first times in my life that the like outside things became a little bit more important. I moved into a place with my girlfriend, and then COVID kicked off. So training again slowed down a little bit, and we were doing what we could do through that. And I really started to notice a bit of hunger come back. But I also had done so many things, like I started writing a blog, and I'd done that on and off for a period of time. But you know, I've been quite strict with that, and I've really enjoying it. We've been doing tennis, which I've never really played before. We've been doing bits of Muay Thai. So I actually feel like I've got to a point where I have a bit more balance, which is making me more hungry for judo again. So I will fight at 81 kilograms. I have no idea to what level. I have no idea what to let. It might just be domestic. It might be national. It might be. I really don't know. But I will start with some domestic events when they do kick off, and I will see how I feel. I might do one event and think, you know what, I'm done with this. Actually, that's that part of my life over. Or I might have a few more years in me. I really don't know. Only time will tell with that one now.
Fair enough. You know, you mentioned that you started like doing tennis and a few other things. I read one of your blog posts about how you came away from judo and you've been like trying to find some hobbies, and like you've never really understood pushing for something and just doing something for fun and whatnot. And you talked about how, you know, you did some mountain biking, you've been doing some tennis, you do like now some creative writing, drawing, you know, all that kind of stuff. What, like, if anything, has that benefited then in transition to the other side? Has like finding that space where you can just have fun and be at whatever level, has that made when you go back to fighting and being competitive easier or harder in some ways?
I think with the training, that the more serious side of things, like geared towards judo training, no, I've not really noticed much different. I know I can turn it on when I need to.
Yeah.
And no, I almost just feel a bit more mentally rested because I'm not constantly. It's almost, I suppose, it's almost a little bit of distraction.
Yeah.
In that my mind doesn't constantly think about, because I can get like hyper focused about things, and it's like judo's the only thing that I want to think about, and
Yeah.
I have to check myself. I have to check myself a lot of the time, because it's like we'll have a bit of game of tennis, and then my girlfriend and I'll like plan on going out for dinner, and I'm thinking while she's in the shower after we finish tennis, I can get on and have a look at how Federer does that shot or something. You know, I struggle to just do an hour of tennis and then leave it alone.
Yeah. You know,
so I have to, that's where I need to kind of do like a personal inventory and just say, don't do that, mate. That's becoming unhealthy with it. Just enjoy. You've enjoyed your hour.
Yeah.
Accept it and get ready for dinner.
Here's a interesting challenge that we've been thinking about as well. Like, is there a way to combine the two, right? So like, I'm thinking about a couple things. I'm thinking about our work. And so a lot of our work is it's just being here and interacting, and you know, there's a lot of technical stuff behind it and what have you. But then we're also thinking about other little side projects that are sort of related to podcasting that we could bring into this channel, to this brand, and really trying to be quiet enough and to say, like, do we actually like doing that? Would we love doing that? And we're sifting through stuff that might be more successful to stuff that might just be more enjoyable, and navigating like that whole thing. But I'm also thinking about like other people that do things that are related to their core sport or their core ambition, like Vasily Lomachenko. I know his dad would make him do like ballet and stuff like that. So whether he liked it or not, but there's other athletes, it's not coming to mind readily right now, that do a lot of cross training stuff that almost breaks it up a little bit, but it contributes to the sport.
Yeah.
And so there's something about like keeping it fresh, keeping it fun, keeping the process, like back to the process now, keeping the process fresh and fun and like enjoyable. There's something about that. We're working through that the whole time. So
I think there's something deeper to it. Like, you know, when you're talking about making the like you were saying about the coaches at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Jiu-Jitsu events, kind of like calming their athletes down and things. And it's like, you could look too much into Stoicism. I think it's like, there has to be passion there. There has to be passion there for those athletes to push themselves, to turn up every day. And there was an American weightlifting coach, actually. His name, I can't remember his name. But I remember reading an article about it, and someone had questioned him on what is the most important thing to an athlete getting to the top level. And he said the ability to still be creative and to push through the boredom of the monotony of doing roughly the same things day in and day out. And I don't think there's any way of escaping that, particularly with a young athlete, and particularly with a sport that's so complex and multidimensional as judo. They've just got to do loads and loads and loads. But particularly for an older athlete, and I'm not to say that you can't throw other little bits in there just to keep their minds a bit fresh and things. But with an older athlete, if you take all the elements of performance and you put them on one pie chart, one is your technical work, one is your sparring work, one is your strength and conditioning, one is your nutrition. The motivation section of that has to be as big as any of the others. Yeah. So if not doing an extra weight session and going to play a game of tennis because you enjoy it, keeps you more motivated, that's a no-brainer. Because, you know, particularly for me, I'm at a stage where I could just hang my belt up. I could just say, I've had enough of fighting now. But then I also look at it and it's like I've sacrificed. I'm actually at judo, I'm better than I ever have been before. You know, with the lockdown situation, I might have to do some fitness work for a couple of months before I fight. But that's quite basic stuff, actually. Yeah. That's not simple. I just sit on a rowing machine and do what I got to do. But particularly for older athletes, that motivation, you know, when I've been doing it since I was 4 years. I don't remember life without judo. I've been doing it since I was 4 years old. So for me, it's like, and that stuff that will almost have to be like our meditation stuff. That will have to be a decision made on the day. It might just be a case of saying to my coach, you know what, I'm really not fancying this. It's different if you're in preparation for a tournament. It's like, do you mind if I just go and I'll do something active, but I'll go and do just something a little bit different today. And you know, like since I think that's happened once in 3 months. Yeah. You know, so really in the grand scheme of things, I'm quite lucky. I'm quite resilient to injuries. You actually look at the other people injury. It's like I'm still on the mat more than them. So,
dude, have you ever? Do you follow UFC?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
So you know Tony Ferguson?
Yeah.
Yeah. He throws up some videos on Instagram that you're just like, oh my god! Like there's some stuff where he is. I mean, the range is crazy. Like he gets out on a beach doing some crazy stuff. He'll get on a trampoline. He'll do flips onto like landing pads. He'll have like a wooden Wing Chun dummy that he's doing stuff. Some of the stuff you're like, how is this going to help? Like literally where could this possibly help? And then you think a little bit further and then you're like, okay, man, I get, so like there's some conditioning stuff. There's probably definitely some balance stuff. There's some absolutely some joy in what he's doing because he's just having fun with some stuff. He does some breakdancing shit. Oh, like what other like crazy shit does he do?
He literally did a flip and caught the like heavy bag the other day, and like just like what?
So what I think with that, sorry to cut you out there. I think there's a bit of a thing in the thing. No, what I think is great with stuff like that. Remember when McGregor was coming through and he used to post stuff like of him doing capoeira and things like that after the session. And I remember a few of my mates that have like, they might have done a few years of boxing or things. And they're like, what's he doing that shit for? Yeah. And I got it. It's like when you've been training that long, going back to the weightlifting coach of that's a way of him pushing through the monotony of the boredom of like, you know, he claimed it. He's obviously got a very good left hand. If the idea of practicing that capoeira stuff for 10 minutes at the end of the session gets him to a 90-minute session where he's going to drill that left hand, tell me that's not worth it.
Yeah, for sure. And it's also
that stuff's worth it. If doing the Wing Chun dummy is keeping Tony Ferguson interested in martial arts, Nate Diaz doing their nunchucks and things. Well, no one takes a nunchuck into an octagon, but it keeps their interest.
Yeah. The other thing is like, I think, like if you think of Conor McGregor, I would think his competitors would look at it and part of them would be like, what the fuck's he doing? And then another part of them would be like, what the fuck is he doing? You know what I mean? Like there's an element of like mystique in it. Like, is he onto some stuff that, you know,
should be doing?
yeah, because he was doing some like some movement stuff with a movement coach that was, you know, really, really random, almost like animal movement type things. And to some degree, like he fully bought in, like this is a huge improvement to my balance, to my weight distribution, to, you know, all that stuff, and to my mental well-being. But my contention is that others that are looking at it as well, if it's outside the ordinary, part of them might be thinking, damn, he might actually be getting a little bit of an advantage here on me. I don't know, because I don't even understand it. I don't even understand what the hell he's doing, you know?
Yeah,
And so-
and he is a master of self-promotion, isn't he? I mean, that,
Oh my God, yeah.
one of the best people in the world at that. And I think a lot of that stuff was for the gram, was for Instagram and things. Again, I don't know, but he's obviously interested in it, and it's part of it. It's like I'm interested in like the history of judo.
Yeah.
What good does that do me when I've got a Georgian lad that's trying to stick me through the floor? It doesn't. But it keeps me interested in the thing, you know, and it's like a balance. It's a balanced approach on it, you know. And that movement stuff was around in the 80s, with people like Steve Maxwell were kind of promoting that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's not new, but it was definitely a different approach that people kind of in the modern generation haven't seen. So, you know, well, fair play to him. Like, you know, he did very well after then, didn't he?
Yeah.
Did you guys watch the UFC at the weekend?
Yes.
We did. Yeah, we actually live streamed it, man. It was so cool. We were watching it with about 1,000 people on the live stream, so it was pretty amazing. Yeah, dude. I mean, what was your impression of?
I mean, Habib is probably my favorite MMA fighter, and he has been for a while. But that was just considering, like, kind of on paper, Gaethje was going to be his biggest test. Could wrestle well, could bang, was willing to stand in the pocket with him, and you know, and I love watching Justin Gaethje as well. But he was just walking him down straight from the first battle. Like, it was incredible performance.
Yeah. And I mean, we were blown away. I think after hearing the fact that he had a broken toe and a few other bits and bobs, I mean, there's now this whole like greatest fighter of all time, greatest of all time conversation going on. And I think, in my personal opinion, if I was going into trial by combat and I could choose a champion, I think Habib would maybe be my champion. I think, and that kind of signifies for me that he would be the GOAT. But also, I think, man, in terms of just sheer dominant performance, like, dude, it was beautiful. I love that he put so much pressure on Justin almost from the get-go. And again, we thought that, we definitely didn't think he was going to stand and strike with him. The fact that pretty much 4 minutes of the first round was standing and striking, and then got him down for like the last 30 seconds or so. It was amazing to watch. And I think, again, what was also beautiful, and I think a lot of people forget, is that his wrestling is of a very high level. His Sambo chain wrestling is incredible, but also throwing a top-mounted triangle shows very high-level jiu-jitsu as well. It shows that he then also rocked it. He went to go like Russian armbar and then threw it into a triangle as well. Like, it just shows that there's some high-level shit, very, very high-level shit going on there that people don't even know he has.
That was deep in his bag. He hasn't pulled that shit out for like 5 years. Like, he hasn't had to pull that out for 5 years. And he was just like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm going to throw 2 or 3 different submissions on Gaethje because this is the way this particular match should go. But so let me throw this at you. We were talking about this GOAT discussion, and like, people are talking about different aspects of the GOAT discussion and bringing up people like John Jones and Anderson Silva. And so the conversation is about, you know, strength of schedule, like who you fought, how many times you've defended the belt, how many weight classes you've defended in or competed in, all this other stuff. So we just reduced it down to this. The aliens come onto Earth. They come and they're just like, look, we will put one of our best in any weight class against anyone in the UFC. Who are you going to pick to represent the humans to save human existence? Who are you going to put? In that situation, like, that takes away everything else. Like,
Numbers.
At the lightweight division, we're going to pick lightweight and we're going to put Habib in there. Like, that's what I would say. I mean, you could say John Jones as well, it'd be kind of close.
As long as he's headed up, he's had his little bump before he gets in the ring, and he's ready to go party afterwards. Like, Jesus, as long as not under the ring, like getting ready for the fight.
Thanks for watching this episode. We really appreciate you supporting Homie and the Dude.
Please hit us with the Holy Trinity, like our Facebook page, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and follow us on Instagram. Just search @Homie and the Dude. It all really helps.
Yeah, I mean, those are the two, aren't they, for me?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't really like all that stuff. Who is the GOAT thing? I kind of think it's irrelevant. Like, you know, you could argue like Mighty Mouse was bang up there. He's one that's never
Exactly what I said.
really dropped into the. It's like, who's the greatest of all time? This guy in the 70s or this guy in 2020? I just, you know, I get it for like kind of casual fans and things. And I'm not a mixed martial artist, so I am a casual fan of that. I just don't really buy into it. It's just, you know, like, and for me, it's like that one gets dropped in judo all the time. Judo changed completely when the Soviet Union broke up, because, you know, the Olympic Games before then was, you know, you would fight, there'd be one Soviet fighter in there now, and judo and wrestling, as you know, and sambo is, which are all quite similar, is massive in all those ex-Soviet states. So when you had one fighter, then now you've got Russian, Armenian, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Ukraine, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan. Like, you got all 16 of them, and it's not just changing the depth and the quality of it. It's changed the style of modern judo as well, because you've got all these kind of sambo-esque style techniques coming in. You know, Georgian wrestling is called Chadauba. So you kind of have those styles, those techniques coming in, and it's kind of, you know, judo, because it was the Olympic sport, has just become a cauldron for all of that, and which is brilliant. I love it. I forgot where I was going with that.
Well,
a little history lesson with no point on the end of it.
No, yeah. I do you know what? It's
We're
interesting.
talking about the best, you know, sort of the best ever, and the judo, judo players talk about it as well.
It's like there was some guys in the 70s and some British guys like Neil Adams, particularly, for example, who dominated on a world level. And it's like, but, you know, now judo's still getting harder. I appreciate in another 10 years, you've got countries like the North Africans that are really coming through now, and they're, you know, they were not a walkover back in the day. You know, you had a few of them that would win some, really get some high level results. I think they had 1 or 2 Olympic medals, but it's like they're a real force to be reckoned with now. And I appreciate like now, if I do move into coaching, the people I coach, it's going to be even harder than it was in my day.
Yeah. And, you know, it's a really strong point. I think the whole Khabib thing and where people rank, and it's just, at the end of the day, it's all superficial, because it's all numbers. And like you said, you know, through time, I mean, realistically, it's the whole, like, if you look at basketball, people go, is LeBron James as good as Michael Jordan? It goes, well, they'll never play on a court together, so we'll never know in their prime, so we can never compare that. And I think, like you said, at the end of the day, if you're the baddest guy of your time, then you're the baddest guy of your time. You might not be the baddest guy the next time, but you are definitely the baddest guy of your time. And I think in some way, like you said, at this point, especially with mixed martial arts, like, and you said judo at this point is becoming this cauldron. When you throw all of those different combat sports and all the different opportunities, all the different martial arts that exist, people are starting to bring so many aspects. Like we said, you know, Tony Ferguson doing Wing Chun and things like that. It really, really shows that, yeah, today's like competitor, if you put them against, you know, a Hoist Gracie or someone like that, it's a completely different fight. You know, even from things like now, the outside leg kick is such a prevalent thing within the UFC versus even 5 years ago. No one was really thinking about it to the extent that it's now in almost every fighter's repertoire. And it's like, you then reduce the years back and it gets more simple with each fighter. And then you get to the originals and it's like, one guy's a grappler, one guy's a striker. Let's see what happens. And, you know, it's very interesting that, yeah, I love that as well. That it's one of my favorite things about martial arts, and also why I love old Chinese martial arts movie, them being so strict with their martial arts, and then watching things like now where you see someone like Khabib link 4 different martial arts together in a 3-second space, and you're like, that was beautiful. Like, it's just art happening in front of you. And I think you're right, the development has been one of the most amazing parts of why people have been, like you said, continuing to almost develop and not get bored within martial arts as well.
Can I sort of build on that a little bit and then go to something else you said earlier? So one of the conversations on Khabib working against him to be, in this conversation the best of all time, is that he has only defended and competed in the lightweight division, one division. And so you can kind of see aspects of why that would be beneficial and aspects of why that would be working against him. And you're going through that right now, Danny. So you've gone through this. Did you say you were at 72 and you're going to be at 81 now? Is that what it was?
Yeah, 73 to 81.
Yeah. Okay. So, and there was advantages of you being at 73. You'd cut, and then you'd rehydrate and you'd be bigger on the day, so that if someone else didn't cut as much as you, you felt like you were just a bigger human being than them, stronger and able to put your weight on them. So that's a legitimate thing. We know of certainly personally, we know some instances where we have some mixed martial arts friends that have their contention is, I'm not going to cut. And so then so that's great. And you feel healthy and you feel fully charged and healthy mentally and physically stepping into the ring. But then you get into a situation where the person against you has cut and they're 11 kilos heavier than you on the day. So like, it's a really tough thing to think about. And I'm sure this is where you are right now, navigating that 73 to 80, to 81 thing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was a case of like, I'm not really moving up. I'm just not going down.
Yeah.
I will have to cut a little bit for 81s, but it will be far, far easier. And the one I say in judo, it's like, you kind of get people, it became a bit of a thing and a bit of a taboo subject over here, because like, to force a minor or to get a minor to weight cut, that's like legally classed as child abuse. Yeah. And there has been a few quite nasty public cases against coaches that have that have done that. And for me, it's like, a kid doesn't cut weight. It doesn't need to cut weight. You're going to be doing plenty of that when you're a senior, so you might as well kind of save that mental torture for later on. There's a point as well. Like, there's a point. Judo is very different with the way we do our weigh-ins. It's like you weigh in about 12 hours before. So tournament starts at 10 o'clock in the morning, 8 p.m. the night before you weigh in. 9 o'clock of the day of the tournament, 4 people are randomly checked. If you're more than 5% over, you're disqualified. So wow. You kind of have another bracket. It's to stop all the bounces. I think MMA's like, one thing, it's a professional fighting sport where making money is the prime aim. Why are there not more weight categories?
Yeah.
Having like 10% of a body weight jump each time is massive. And I'm not a professional mixed martial artist. I'm not an amateur mixed martial artist. I'm a judo player. The one thing that I say to kind of some of the people that might not be competing at the top level, and they're like, oh yeah, you shouldn't be doing that weight cutting and things. I just, the one I always say to them, it's like, okay, I tell you what to do. Go to one of the international training camps, go and find a Russian or a Russian and a Georgian that are in that weight that cut themselves, and go and see how you get on with them. Yeah. And you're going to get absolutely manhandled. Yeah. You're going to just get like, you can be technical, and that's the beauty of grappling. It's like, you can be as technical as you want, as long as someone can kind of be around the same area of technicality, but they're so much more physically prepared. You're in big trouble. You're in big trouble.
We felt it in jiu-jitsu, didn't we? I mean,
massively so. Yeah.
You could just have someone, and you're like you just said, they don't have to be technically better than you. But if they weigh, and and if you're just in a jiu-jitsu class and you're training with different people, you're going around the different room, and you're going to be bigger than some people, same size as some people, and smaller than some people. And you could really, really feel, some people are a lot bigger than you, and they can literally just lay on you and then control the space and then decide what they're going to do after that. And there's not a lot of like room for you to put much, especially if you're lower level, like, sort of like I was certainly. I mean, there was just not a lot for me to be to be able to do to get out of those situations. It was,
Yeah.
it was really, and then so
I mean,
so the dilemma is, you're right. This is a prize fighting sport. So, you've heard stories of Borrachina, Paulo Costa, who you see pictures of him when he's not cutting. I mean, he fights at 185. He walks around probably 220, 225. I mean, he's just a huge, huge person. He somehow gets down to 185 and then rehydrates, and he's well over 205. Like he's 20 pounds heavier on the night.
Super interesting what you said about judo adding that extra layer in there, and that extra layer of like weight checking that
Is good.
almost inhibits some of that craziness.
It does, but I think it's absolute naivety of to think that you can eradicate weight cutting or that you can control it or thing. It's absolute naivety of how a professional or a highly competitive athlete's mind works.
Yeah,
we all know, while there have been weight sports, there's always been weight cutting, and while there will always be weight sports, there will always be weight cutting. It doesn't matter what restrictions you try and put in place, people will always make the weight. The one I say is like the parents will say thingy, it's like, well, what is making weight? What do you want to stop there? What, you want to stop people sitting in saunas or hot baths or thingies because you have a Mars bar every day. You have to stop eating that Mars bar every day to make weight, even if that's you're losing 200 grams. You've still made weight. That's still a weight making process. There are still psychologically damaging effects to that because you have altered your relationship with food in order to make weight. So that's still weight cutting. It's like, and for me, the one they do in MMA, like 36 hours, that is extortionate. That's absolutely extortionate. And to me, it just seems like, one, you either want your athletes to go through that, which if they do, fair enough. Yeah. But to think that that is healthier for the athlete, it's because you're just encouraging it. To have that much time to refuel, you're encouraging those very severe weight loss strategies.
And I think we read somewhere that with weight cutting as well, it takes your brain longer to rehydrate than your body. With striking sports, it can be even more dangerous because it then doesn't have the protective liquid as much there to protect it. So
and cognitive power.
Yeah, and your cognitive ability as well. So I think, I actually wanted to ask you, because obviously, you've talked about doing a lot of weight cuts, and we've talked to a couple of other martial artists and people, but very few of them have been doing weight cuts. And actually, the one MMA fighter that we did speak to, who was a Bellator fighter at the time, wasn't cutting weight. So what's it like, dude? What are you putting yourself through to get down to it? And is there like a time where it's been so hard that you've either broken or anything like that?
Yes, there's been a couple of tournaments where I never got to a tournament and didn't make weight, but there's a few times, like 5 or 6 days before, I've just said no, that's not happening. And that actually happened with my last one. Like, I think that's happened 3 times. That's happened 3, and the last one, that happened. I had a point after the second one where I said to myself, if this ever happens again, I'm never doing it. I'm not even going to attempt to make 73 kilograms. And, bearing in mind, we're making weight like 10 times a year. It was just constant. And by the end, I was going through MMA style cuts for judo. It's like, it's constantly on your mind, constantly. It drains when you're hungry, everything's shit, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Everything.
Sure.
It wouldn't matter if fucking Jesus Christ dropped out of the sky and told you that you're going to be king of the world. If you're hungry in that point, it's just like, yeah, whatever.
You know what? On top of that, if you're getting closer to an event and you're stressed, if you're the type of person that, like, so I am, when I deal with stress, first thing I do is I go to the refrigerator and I put something in my mouth, and somehow that like cuts stress a little bit. Other people do different things. Some people sleep, some people go for a run, whatever. But even more so that, there's elements of psychological battle that you have to deal with. So talk to us specifically about, like, what is weight cutting for some people that never, like, I I've seen it on video on YouTube, but you know, you see people with towels on them, and like, when does it start, the actual serious cut right before the weigh-in, and what process do you go through as far as sweating out your liquid?
So you would look well, the sweat off. So 3 days out, wherever I would be at, it would be removing as much sodium from the diet and as much fiber. Basically, obviously, sodium holds water, so you're getting rid of any. You're trying to get rid of any excess water that your body's holding. Fiber, by removing fiber, it encourages bowel movement. So you're basically getting rid of everything in your bowels, and you'll be so surprised at how much weight on the scales that you can lose by this. But I think it's important for people that haven't been through this process to remember it is a cut, it is a drop. You're not actually like, your body composition isn't really being affected from that point. You know, that's happened before when you're trying to lower the fat stores and things, but this point is just a severe drop. So then for me, weighing in at 8 o'clock, it's, you know, I wouldn't dehydrate any more than from the morning of that day, whatever I was. I think the most severe cut that I ever did was probably 6.2 kilograms on the day.
Wow. So 15 pounds or something like that.
Yeah. I think that took me about 9 hours.
So how do you do that? What are you doing to get that off?
So like,
because I heard that you actually, is it a couple days out, you're actually drinking a lot of water? Is there any
some people do the water loading thing. For me, it was like, I didn't really notice a massive difference with that, and kind of having to go to the toilet all the time, waking up in the middle of the night to go to the toilet. For me, the minimal difference that made wasn't worth, you know, losing sleep and things. So I tried that one, the water loading method, a couple of times. That didn't really work for me. But getting into, like, without getting too deep into like biochemistry or anything, water passes into water better than water passes into air. Some people like a sauna. If there was no bath in the hotel, in the tournament hotel, I would use a sauna to do that. But preferably it would be a hot bath. And you're not in the bath, you would do as hot as you could handle for about 10 minutes. And then I would jump in the bed in the room and I would just cocoon myself. I'd wrap towels around my head, around my neck, and then just cocoon myself. And you'll sweat for an hour or so. And I used to, like, I would kind of just go, if I had plenty of time, like if I'd started in the morning and things, I would just go to, I would go to how I feel. Like if I was still sweating, I would stay in, and then kind of when I noticed the sweat was slowing down, then I'd get back, do another 5-10 minutes in the bath, then wrap up again. So until you're there.
That's super interesting, dude. I was also going to ask, like, obviously with dehydration, like I kind of knew the process in maybe a little bit more detail than Tom of how that typically goes for people. But one thing a question that I've always had that I haven't actually been able to ask anyone is, how are the headaches? Because for me, when I don't drink a lot of water for like 3-4 hours, I get a splitting headache. And for me, a headache would almost be worse than not eating. I would just lose my mind if I had a couple hours of like really, really bad headaches. So what's it like for your headspace and all that during that?
Shit.
Yeah.
The only way you can describe that. It's not fun. Like that day that was in Korea actually. That the 6.2 cut, and it's like, you know, I held my phone up to check the time and I was seeing double and things, and it's listen, that can't be healthy for you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, you know, neither's going down the pub and sticking 10 pints into an doner kebab, and it's it's what I wanted to do. I was an adult. I made the choice and I did it, and I made the way. So it's, you know, I get it. Like, I think people do need to understand that like, you know, doing a high level combat sport that's weight controlled isn't you know, healthy. But what is healthy? What is that? What, going for a walk every day and maybe doing a bit of resistance training, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe in my 60s or 70s.
Dude, I almost forgot when you just said, well, that was when I was in Korea and that's when I did my big weight cut. We got a fucking Olympian on the podcast.
That's crazy.
Let's talk about the Olympics.
I was actually about to say, what rank what belt rank were you pre-Olympics? Can you tell us a bit about what living in a porta potty with 20 dudes and training 3 times a day was like, dude? I would really love to hear about that.
We almost missed that, dude.
I loved that for a long time. I was living in the judo club for about 9 years.
Oh wow.
Just shy of 9 years actually. I probably stayed there a couple of 2-3 years too long. And I got out in the end, and I don't regret that decision, but I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I came from a rural town where I had to travel an hour or so every day to get to training. I was doing a plastering apprenticeship actually at the time.
Yeah.
And I left that and I came to do the thing that I love doing every day. And it's like my bedroom was 9-10 foot maximum away from the mat area.
Yeah. Wow.
It was fucking amazing. And I love that place. It's I love the club, but I also kind of love what living in there did for me. It's it definitely changes your character. It definitely builds character living in there. And I was a single child as well. So when you're shut in and you're living with 25 other people, it's like all that shit gets stripped away from you pretty quickly. I like my bedroom tidy. I like my kitchen tidy.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
learn to live with it, mate.
Yeah, for sure. I'm a single child too, and I actually went not to judo like camp or anything, nothing as awesome as that. I actually went to a boarding school though, so I went from like being an only child to living with 5 people for like 8 years, and it was very much the same thing. You learn personal space is not yours, but everyone's actually. And yeah, no, it's interesting. Yeah. It's super interesting.
You can imagine with like 25 other people that do combat sport. It's like, why have you put the shoes there? Well, what's wrong with me putting my shoes there?
Let's roll. Take it to the mat. Like everything.
Yeah, you know where that goes. Like.
Was everything decided with a 3-minute freestyle?
Lounge wrestling was a popular.
It was pass out or tap out. I believe were the club rules.
Dude, let me ask you this. And this might not have been the highlight, but for me, I'm picturing the moment that you realized you were going to the Olympics. If I could put myself in that headspace, that must have been truly amazing to just know that, the history of that and the honor and all of that and representing your country. Talk to us about that a little bit.
So I kept myself quite like, there was a point where, I wasn't winning world championship medalists or anything like that before the Olympics, but it was kind of like I'd been British #1 for a couple of years or so. And it was like, I was getting sent on all the preparation trips and stuff, but I kind of didn't let myself, which I think was the right thing to do. I didn't let myself think I'm going to the games until I got that selection email.
Yeah.
And I didn't, and I remember the morning that came, and I went out, I was with all the lads and it was like big cheer went up and things, because there was a couple of us that were training at Camberley at that time. Well, there was 3. There was 2 of us. There was myself, a woman called Karina Bryant, and another guy, Ashley McKenzie, who was training at Camberley but wasn't full-time there then. And it was like big cheer went up, and then I felt it coming over me, and I went out into my car and I cried like a baby.
Nice. I can imagine.
It was amazing. Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, because I'm just picturing, the culminate. We talked about the process, right? And the years of sacrifice of, not having some things that other people have that they would consider as, luxuries that you'd have to sacrifice for just because of the commitment, the hours to get closer to this goal. And there it is. There's the announcement, and that all has to be pretty goddamn overwhelming to some degree.
Yeah, and we, for us, it's, if you stay in judo long term, you get 3 shots. Like, what's the max you're going to do? 3 Olympics, maybe 4. Has anyone done that? I think a couple of people have done that. It's not like another sport where you can get that title shot, lose, then go back, win a couple of fights and get another title shot. It's like once every 4 years. That's the pinnacle of our sport.
Yeah.
Once every 4 years, 45 people are going to turn up in the weight category. Only one of them is going to walk away with that dream that everyone's ever thought about, but it's worth it. As tough as I found London in some ways, it was a life-changing experience. It was incredible.
Yeah. So interestingly, dude, like you said that, you know, it was like that experience going there like changed you as a person a little bit and all the training. A lot of people talk about like when you, and I've definitely experienced it when I go on things like when I go away and I go with my boys skating, my skating improves much faster the moment that I'm putting, you know, like you said, you're doing 3 sessions a day, you're surrounded by people who are doing it. It's possibly all you think about and talk about as well in a lot of cases. And um, how much faster did it accelerate the process of like a progression for you? Like how fast did that confinement and that ability to exercise and do your training as much as possible, how much did that accelerate it for you?
Very, very quickly. So I only got on the British junior team in my last year as a junior. So it's like a 4-year window from 16 to 20.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd loved judo and I'd always worked as hard as I could, but naturally I didn't really have it. And I didn't have like an international senior level coach until I moved to Camberley. So kind of like mixing with how much I love judo, you know, my work ethic is as well, which hindered me at some times because I would be like a million miles an hour. And, you know, after the London Games, I had to go back and reevaluate. It's like, I'm just not good enough at the basics.
Yeah.
I'm not good enough at the basics because I've just kind of, one, I wasn't taught them, but two, as well, it's like I hadn't paid attention to them because I just wanted to win straight away and train as hard as I could.
Yeah.
But kind of when I got under that direction, within 12 months of being at Camberley, I was British senior #1. I had a bit of fortune in that the 73 kilogram weight category didn't have any big hitters. Like in the category above, under 81 kilos, you had a guy called Ewan Burton who, you know, he ended up being a double world championship medalist.
Wow.
One of the best fighters we've ever had.
Yeah.
You know, that one, there's another guy, Tom Davis, another guy, Tom Reed. So it's like, actually, if I was in the weight above, I'd have done well to even get on the British senior team. So it fell lucky for me that, you know, there was no massive hitters in that weight and it was kind of open so that I could come through. And, you know, and off the back of that, you know, and don't get me wrong, I worked as hard as I could and trained as hard as I could. But, you know, I can recognize that, you know, fortune found me there, really. And then I got, you know, I was being sent on all the trips of all the British #1s and things like that. So, you know, it was kind of an 18-month window where I was barely skirting around on the British junior team to then being senior #1. So it was, you know, for me, that's kind of, it shows you get put in an environment like Camberley Judo Club and all that, then it worked wonders for me.
Nice. That's super interesting. Also, another kind of interesting question. When you arrived at Camberley, how much of you was covered in tattoos at this point? And how much of you was yet to be filled at that point? Because we've seen like your beauty, like you've got an amazing, like, I'm not sure if it's full body or like chest piece that you're going on and do. Tell us a bit about like your artist. What's going on with that?
Yeah, and also like where are your Olympic rings in the whole like in the collage of stuff?
Yeah, no, I haven't. I didn't get the rings.
Really?
And I kind of, yeah, and I never really felt the need for that. It's kind of, you know, for me, the Olympic, it really was about the experience and about the journey. I felt it's, you know, and a lot of it was exercising the desire. I don't think I could have lived with myself if I'd have not fully ever gone for it and committed full time and trained as hard as I could. I had to exercise all of that out of me.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, so I never really felt the need to get the rings. But I first got tattooed in 2011. One of my very good friends growing up, Matt, he started getting tattooed by a lady in Birmingham called Jo Harrison. And, you know, and then they started seeing each other, and I wasn't into tattoos at the time. Never even thought about getting one, but also hadn't thought about not getting one.
Yeah.
Kind of had a look at Jo's work and realised that she was, you know, a real world-renowned artist. And when I moved to Camberley in 2009, and I know Matt and Jo went out and they travelled around the States and then Central America for about 18 months or so. And when they came back, they were living in the studio that Jo's got in Birmingham, Modern Body Arts on Corporation Street. And I went to see them, and they were living in the kind of the flat underneath the studio. And I'd never been in the tattoo studio properly before. And I walked in and I had a look around and I thought, you know what, this is a bit of me. This is a bit of me. And then that was probably like the October of 2010. I fought in the European Championships in April of 2011, and then I had like an 8-day break, and I went to see them. They were in Thailand because Matt, he's still involved in like boxing now, but he did a lot of Muay Thai back in the day. So he was training over there, so I went and I got tattooed by Joe, and we started with a ram skull across my feet, and I loved it. And I still love my tattoos, and I particularly love those feet tattoos. But after about 10 days, I stopped looking at the tattoo and I started looking at my bare shins.
Yeah.
And I was like, there we go, there's the bug.
Yeah.
So you started doing like a reverse perspective of like, not what part of my body is tattooed, but what part of my body isn't tattooed that needs to be tattooed as soon as possible.
Yeah. So, like straight away. And I spoke to Matt about that, and he's like, there you go, mate, you've got the ink bug. So you
got the bug. And they say, so Bodhi has a few more tattoos. I have one piece, but you have about what, 7 or 8 tattoos?
I have like 9.
You have 9 tattoos. And there's an element of almost like a cycle. You get a tattoo and there's like almost like a psychological urge to get back into the studio. Like almost like, is it like right after it starts healing?
Well, I don't know. I have this. My urge definitely lasts for typically about 6 months, and I know if I can like not go back in those 6 months, then I'm not gonna like go on a spree of just getting them. But I know that if I go back in the 6 months, yeah, it's like, oh,
line them up.
Yeah, exactly. Let's get another one. Let's go.
So my bodysuit is like, it's still in progress, obviously. So
yeah.
I think it must have been after the. So I wanted some big heavy black work as well.
Mhm.
Like Joe does so many different styles and things, but like her stuff is beautiful. But I wanted some heavy black work as well, and I kind of wanted a mixture of the two.
Yeah.
And I spoke to Matt. I said, "Do you know anyone that does a heavy black work?" And he was like, "You're joking." I said, "What?" And he was like, I've actually been drawing like black work tattoos for a couple of years."
Nice.
And Joe has spoken, and like she's gonna kind of teach me the technical side of things. So I ended up, after London, I went back to Shropshire where I grew up for a couple of months, and I started getting tattooed by both of them. So Matt,
Wow.
who his artist name is Hanu Mantra.
Yes.
So I go and see those guys for a bit of dinner, and I end up getting like a couple of hours on my neck or something like that. So,
we actually saw, so we haven't seen Joe's style yet. When we've seen it on your body and it looks amazing, but we actually have looked through Hanumantra's Instagram and seen, the big, pieces. And I was just like thinking, like, technically, how are they applying that to you? So there's a lot of ink on there. Is it, are they just bigger needles that have just bigger tracks, or how does that work?
What, when they pack the black work in?
Yeah.
So they call it a mag. So they might use, like Matt might use a larger mag. So he'll use a smaller one to line, and then when he's filling it in, he'll use a larger mag that contains more needles. And that's about as much as I know, to be fair. I just
how wide
lie down and grit my teeth.
Yeah.
So the answer to your question is
mags.
I know this. So mags are typically like more than 5 needles or so. You can get smaller ones. You can get lining ones that are very small, and they have a couple more needles. But typically mags are a lot more needles, and you can still line with a mag, but it takes a very special technique to line with a mag, and you get like perfectly symmetrical lines. But typically mags are used for shading and stuff.
Yeah.
I was going to say, how many passes did they do? Because I have a black band, like a solid black work band, and he went for 3 passes, and by the 3rd pass, I was like, right, I'm okay for another one. Let's just leave it at that. Like, I don't need to be torn up anymore. How many passes do they do for you?
So actually, my leg sleeve was Matt's first big project. Like
Wow.
I said, we were really good mates and stuff, and
Yeah.
and I kind of know the way he is. So I had faith in him doing something really good. So did that, and I loved it. There was a few sections on that piece. Bearing in mind that was like the first time he'd ever blacked in, where we went over twice, and it's really solid. Like, I mean, we're talking like one section of black covers up like nearly my whole thigh, and arse cheek as well. Like that's just one section, and it is black and black. Now one pass for solid black.
Amazing. That's incredible. That's mad technical. That's like really hard to pack black. That amount of black in that thick. That's beautiful.
Because there's a bit of an art to going deep enough so that you don't need to get back in there and fill things up, but not too deep, where you're puncturing through that, you know, that I don't know what layer of skin that is, where that membrane of skin, where it becomes a problem. But so how those mags are they to just do those strips? I'm picturing like, dude, there's a lot. There's like if this was paint, I would have like the big paintbrush, dude, not the like little paintbrush, just to like get as much surface area done as possible. So those mags, are they, could you like, is it like a half inch? Is it much less than that? Is it like a centimeter or less?
I try not to look. I just close my eyes and let them crack on. I'm sure, Matt, again, I could be wrong with this again. I'm sure like a 25 mag or something like that.
Okay.
25. So I can't really like size thing. I can't really do that justice.
Yeah.
I think so. I might be wrong on that, but I think like a 25 mag or something.
What about the healing process? Because our tattoos are, it's definitely not as substantial as yours, but you go through this sort of I don't know, timeline.
Standard.
Yeah, healing timeline. And you go from it being a little bit like blistery to then what we called, or what our tattoo is called, fish food, where like, the starts flaking away a little bit. And then you see what has actually stuck and what actually didn't stick, that whole process until you get to the point. And what is the panther is what we were putting on. So is it the same thing with one of those heavier tattoos, or is it a different healing process?
Yeah, no. It's largely the same. I've had a couple of tougher heals, typically because like you can't train, can you, after you've been tatted? So I would sometimes go up there and get tattooed for like 2 or 3 days on the trot.
Yeah.
And then when you've got that amount of ink that's been packed in, it's like your body has to work a bit harder. So sometimes I've had like longer and slightly tougher heals than that. But largely, I'm all right. It's like one hit, job done.
Yeah. Have you seen that? Sorry. Have you seen the pain threshold like skeleton guy that looks like almost like Leonardo da Vinci's guy, and it shows the different parts of your body that are a little bit more susceptible to pain than other parts of your body? So for me, like definitely my ribs were the thing. But I mean, you've got like infinitely more paint on you, more ink on you than I do, certainly. What were the areas that are memorably excruciating?
I think well, if you're watching this podcast and you haven't got a tattoo and you've been told they don't hurt, whoever's told you that is lying to you. Don't trust anything they say. The feet are the most painful, I think, but like you can get comfortable with the feet. You can sit on a chair, you can grab a drink, you can have a play with your phone. The ribs is just, you feel it rattling through your whole body. It's like, you could be in the middle of your ribs and it'll like, you can feel it rattling into your tricep or on your hip bone. You kind of have to lie there with your arm pushed up. You can smell their breath, like everything. Like it feels very intrusive.
Yeah.
Whereas like you're having the bottom of your forearm done, you stick your forearm out and they crack on there. It's like with the neck as well, it just feels very intrusive. Like, yeah. For me, the ribs is the one.
Do you know, that's so interesting. I always found as well, like I find for shading, I actually enjoy shading a lot more and dot work than I do line work. The moment someone's lining me, I'm like, oh God, this is like, feels like you're just burning me with hot solder. Like it feels you're with a soldering iron, basically. I'm like, Jesus. But no, yeah, I found like my collarbone was really bad actually. And it was like putting stuff up into like more or less like, I guess it was like shooting nerve pain into like the back of my head. It was so weird. But with your tats and obviously the black work and whatnot, is there a specific style that you guys went for? Is it like symbolizing anything, or was it specifically just a design that you guys came up with together that doesn't have much either like spiritual or other like type of stuff? Because I know some of the big black work stuff does come from a lot of like spiritual or tribal kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, so like I've always been interested in kind of pre-Roman British history and things. So we took a lot of like Celtic designs and things, but I didn't really have. I don't have much stuff involved in the design process. I say kind of roughly what I want. Even with Joe's stuff and with Matt with Hannah Mantra, it's just, I'm not an artist. I'm not an artist. I couldn't draw anything near, that I would want to have tattooed on my body. So it becomes a trust thing. I'm going to see them to get tattooed. They're both some of the best tattooers in the world. It's, I tell them roughly what I want, and then I let them do their thing.
100%.
And I've always been, not even happy, like ecstatic with what they've done. I love my tattoos. So
dude, I love that piece right there in the middle is awesome. Like that is an awesome piece, because it's it has some space to itself, but there's a couple photographs that you have that it's exposed, and there's something about the shape of it. There's something, you know how like when there's a design, like my wife and I were just walking along the pier near Portishead this weekend, and kids had painted rocks, and dude, this went on for like a block, like a city block of rocks just lined across the pathway. And as you're walking, your eye is attracted to certain things, whether it's a color or a shape or the combination of the two things or whatever. But that middle piece of your tattoo is one of those where, like, for me,
saying you're attracted to Danny's chest.
This is not anything other than like an artistic appreciation, Danny. So I don't want you to get me in some sort of like pretzel hold.
No, mate, I grapple with other men and different parts of their areas of their body going in my face. Don't worry. I
was gonna say, one of my favorite things about jiu-jitsu is when you get to the north-south position, and there's a moment where you're like, what is happening here? There's a second where if you step outside where you're in that position, you're like, what the fuck? Like, what am I doing? And then you're like back in, you're like, shit, okay, I need to like actually maneuver this and get to where I need to be. No, yeah.
Just don't look into the eyes and you're covered.
Yeah. Hey, dude, I have a question that one of our followers asked that has to do with jiu-jitsu. That might be a good time to ask about now. So they're a local jiu-jitsu, at least a practitioner, and maybe they have a small gym that they run. And they said there's a little bit of politics, a perceptional politics between jiu-jitsu and judo. And his question that he wanted me to ask you was, people have presented, I think in the judo world maybe, a position that judo and jiu-jitsu are not complementary. And my take on it as a complete novice of both of those was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Like they're like almost like puzzle pieces that are linked together. But I wanted to get a professional perspective. You have, you've got this high level of jiu-jitsu, but also whether you've done much jiu-jitsu or you've certainly seen a lot of it. What are your thoughts?
I love judo. And he's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu.
Oh, you're brown belt? Well, fuck, dude. Then you have like, you're the, possibly the, like brown belt in jiu-jitsu. What level black belt are you in judo?
I'm third Dan.
Okay.
I haven't paid too much attention to the grading side of things, but yeah, I'm a third Dan.
So literally, like, you might be one of a handful of people that's best informed to answer this question in the world.
Now I love both sports. I make no, I'm primarily a judo guy, but I love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I love doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu just for doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think it can be approached in different ways. I know plenty of high-level judo players that are good on the floor in judo and have never done a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu session in their life. I know plenty of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, successful Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu people who are good at takedowns who have never done a judo session in their life. So I don't think you have to. But for me, and I can only speak for me, I found benefits but I have also found some negatives for cross-training.
Nice.
Benefits, quite clearly, there's a different approach to it, specific techniques like the triangle and things, the armbar from the triangle. Like they cross over to judo. Well, the under and over pass is becoming very popular at the moment in judo, kind of popularized by a guy called Travis Stevens. I believe the next big step that jiu-jitsu can influence judo is some of the deep half guard stuff, which obviously complements well, because that will transition into the over under pass. Obviously, stance, movement, grip fighting, simple takedowns where you don't expose the back, kind of some of those Sambo-esque style throws from the belt where you're not turning your back, complement jiu-jitsu really well. However, what I have seen is, you know, and I started jiu-jitsu. I actually started under a guy called Casey Jones, who runs Shropshire SBG. This was back in like 2007, 2008, before I moved to Camberley. And I was selectively going in there. What can I take from jiu-jitsu for judo? I loved MMA and things as well. So I enjoyed kind of learning the other stuff, but I would kind of say in my head, that ain't going to work for judo. So just like, I'll practice it because we're asked to practice it in the session, and I'm not disrespectful. But I would kind of just take that stuff away. Now, what I have seen with some youngsters, like, or people more at their, they're like in the developmental stage of their career, going in, learning jiu-jitsu and not being able to differentiate between the two. They're coming in and they're in turtle, which is they're on their elbows and knees in judo, which is actually a really safe position for contest judo. And they try and turn around and pull guard, and person will just jump over their legs and hold them down. And if you're held down, like in side control in mount or north and south for 20 seconds in judo, and your legs free, that's fight done. Fight done. So they're kind of, they're almost giving their opponent the hold down and things. And I think we need to be selective about it. It's stuff like De La Riva and things. I love De La Riva, and I've tried to implement some of the techniques when I've been in tournament, and the referees just don't understand it, and they just stand you up because it just takes too long. So it's like you've got initially, I think, if you want to cross train, be very selective. And I'm in a bit of a unique position that, although I didn't consistently train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's like 12, 13 years since I've started. So I think largely, there's always stuff that can come in and surprise me. Largely, I've got it sussed of what is going to work for contest judo that I can take from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But as I said, now I go on there and I love learning the leg locks, which we can't do in judo. I love it all. But I'm a bit further on down the line with it, that I can kind of work out what's going to be useful and what's not. And then I'm not a world level jiu-jitsu player. You've got people like Flavio Canto, he won the Mundials for jiu-jitsu. He was world jiu-jitsu champion, but also Olympic medalist in judo. He's well set to be able to go in and say, actually, this is what judo can give Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And I think I've got a good idea of that stuff. Like I said before, the grip fighting and all that. But he's even like people like that, people like Travis Stevens, who's a black belt in both, Olympic medalist in judo as well. They're in probably a better position than I to kind of say which one can be taken from judo back over to Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
It's interesting you say like during developmental stages, so that people can continue like their clarity in terms of making sure that with regulations and things that are implied with each of them, that it's important that kids can differentiate that. I think and it becomes, especially because like you said, there's so much of, for me, like for example, we had another judo practitioner or judoka on recently as well, and Matt Hucker gave us a bit of info that I didn't really know about judo in terms of locks and stuff that you guys are doing on the ground and stuff. I thought it was more about all the tosses and the throws and like pinning people to the ground. I didn't know there was a large area that used submissions and things like that. So it's really interesting, the crossover. But like you said, it's an aspect that I know I definitely hadn't considered. I guess in my head as well, I assumed that as someone who is practicing judo, you would be able to differentiate. But it's a really good point that in that earlier stage, when you are working out your own style, working out how to evolve yourself and progress as well, clouding that in some cases can be a problematic area, I think would be.
I think the other thing is, so my perspective might not have been, it definitely wasn't from your perspective, which was, how do these complement each other in a way that they can advance either one sport or the other sport? And I think where I was coming from it was more from like an MMA competing athlete would having both judo and jiu-jitsu levels of competence in both of those benefit you as an MMA practitioner for both, you know, getting people to the ground, and then once they're on the ground, finding, you know, alternative ways to submit them. So that's kind of where I was coming from. But let me just refine this question, because it was a question from, and we just lost you, Danny. So let's, oh, there we go. So yeah, the actual question was, why are some judo, like old school judokas, why do they dislike British or Brazilian jiu-jitsu? And so that might be a generalization, and there might be some bits and pieces in there. But what's your takeaway on that?
You know what? I keep it simple with that stuff. I think that's like, you know, people that do the keto diet.
Yeah.
You know, the way they don't like people in carbs. I think they group themselves off. They feel they probably feel a bit threatened by jiu-jitsu, to be fair. And I think it comes down to that. It's like, you know, like I like the traditional aspects of judo, but it's, you know, we have to evolve. And, you know, I actually find it quite ignorant of people like that. And it's, you know, they'll quote Jigoro Kano, who was the founder of judo. And, you know, they'll be like, oh, he'd be disgusted at this and things. That guy was like, you know how strict it is in Japan. That guy was one of the most forward-thinking people of his time. You know, he created another martial art. He created his own martial art, took it around the world, learned new languages. I actually think he'd be quite happy with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah,
I think it's just another case of people feeling threatened and bracketing themselves off. You know, instead of actually going, and not just once, because you can't find out what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is about all in one session. It's like, instead of just going, you know what, I'll probably keep my mouth shut and go and try a few of the sessions and see how I get on. And I think they'd be surprised. I think they'd be really, really surprised. Someone that's just a judo black belt, just not like a competitor or anything, that's just a judo black belt, would be in a lot of trouble if they went to a jiu-jitsu club against a decent white belt or a blue belt.
Really? That's really interesting.
At the same time, an international level judo player will give the purple and brown belts and even some of the black belts a run for their money. You know, Ewan Burton, the guy that I spoke about before, who was in the weight category above me, he's now coaching now. I can't say that this story is completely true, but I've heard that the rumor was that he went to one Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu session, obviously as a white belt, and they gave him his purple belt at the end of the session. Like, that's how good the lad was.
Really?
So,
that's amazing.
Wow.
Well,
yeah, and he was absolutely mustard on the floor.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I mean, we talk about, you know, perceptions from judo, about jiu-jitsu, and then you can go on and on. It's happening within certain disciplines. So we look at jiu-jitsu and the backlash against Eddie Bravo and his 10th Planet system. I mean, that has been pretty revolutionized. It's been a grenade thrown into the consciousness of jiu-jitsu from the Brazilian aspect, and then it goes further back to the Japanese. But, you know, so there's that type of political stuff going on within a sport. How much of that, as far as stylistically, is happening within judo? Are there different like branch offs that are, you know, in jiu-jitsu, it seems like if you're not up to date, 6 months from now, there's shit that's happening that you weren't even aware of. Like leg locks are going into their own like deep dive into whole other aspects of stuff. But how much of that is happening in judo, the continued evolution of the sport?
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's always techniques that, you know, that might not have been that popular for 20 years that come back in. But, you know, I think regards to BJJ, it's still such a young sport. Yeah. It's still kind of finding its feet with everything. The beauty of judo is as well, like, you have one or two minuscule other associations, but in Britain, virtually everyone that competes is a member of the British Judo Association, so they fight under one bracket. Worldwide, it's the IJF, the International Judo Federation. so they're all forced into one. There's none of this like, I'm a world champion, but I'm a world champion at like Wada Ryu karate, and then all these things. It's just one. Like there's only one respected worlds, and that's like all done under the IJF, the International Judo Federation. So like, you know if that person's world champion, they are unbelievable.
Yeah, do you know what, that's a really interesting thing that you just brought up in terms of the amount of disparity between organizations, because you even see within MMA, within, like you said, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, you got like the ADC, you got EBI, and a few other organizations and whatnot. And it's interesting because, you know, we mentioned earlier the GOAT status and whatnot. I guess with judo, you guys can look and go, you know, if this guy sat at the top of the pile, it's a little bit easier to discern that based off of the fact that everyone's within one category, versus where there's so many cross-promotional stuff going on in so many other martial arts that, yeah, it's hard to discern that. Going back actually to you talking about your personal crossover, were you doing more Gi Jiu Jitsu, or were you doing more no Gi Jiu Jitsu?
Yeah, just a heads up as well, lads. My phone's down to 12% battery.
Okay, cool. No problem.
Yeah, I just give you a heads up on that in case everything goes black. Yeah, I've done bits of no Gi, but predominantly it's been Gi.
Mm-hmm.
It's been Gi. So.
Yeah, you know, we're super interesting. Me personally, I'll tell you my opinion on Gi Jiu Jitsu, because I find it quite interesting. And I love to hear the contrast from someone who does do Gi Jiu Jitsu. I find the fact, obviously, it's a lot more realistic because, you know, with clothing on and whatnot, typically you wear loose clothing. Everyone wears some sort of loose clothing, whether it be a jacket or a jumper or something. Unless you're in like t-shirt weather and you're a bodybuilder on a beach or whatever, wearing tight shorts or whatever, you know, it's a lot more realistic. But for me, the fact that someone can choke me with my own collar really pisses me off. Like, definitely really annoys me. And I guess for me, then when I started looking at jiu-jitsu, I went more no-gi, because I was like, I like the fact of more full body manipulation rather than clothing as well as body manipulation. What's your kind of perception on the whole, like, using clothes as almost a weapon against your opponent?
I kind of think, are you kind of asking me there, it's like from a self-defense aspect?
I was going to say,
is that what you're asking, or like?
I don't know, like, I guess in of a whole, do you feel like obviously as self-defense, yeah, it would be great to know that. Do you feel like, though, within competition and things like that, do you feel like, obviously, because both guys are wearing a gi, the playing field is leveled. Obviously, if one dude's not wearing a gi and someone is, it becomes a very different kind of conversation. But do you feel like that aspect of jiu-jitsu and grappling is something that is really rich and should be something that should be dived more into, and maybe is a big aspect of Brazilian jiu-jitsu that no-gi guys really are missing out on, a huge, awesome part of Brazilian jiu-jitsu? Or do you feel like actually it's not something that you really need as a whole, because no-gi stuff does cover, again, standard things like arm bars, triangles, leg locks, you know, kimuras, Americanas, whatever, you know? What do you think about that?
I kind of, I have quite a few points on that, actually. You know, if we take it from an MMA perspective, it's, you know, Khabib Nurmagomedov, you fantastic fighter, but also world combat sambo champion in a gi. Yeah. You know, when they wear a gi, you know, and they take their combat sambo extremely seriously in Russia. Extreme. Yeah. So something clearly crosses over there. Yeah. Something clearly crosses over there. However, were I to move into MMA, again, it's difficult because I've done nearly 30 years of judo, but I would look more at at wrestling. And kind of what I say, you know, I did an article a little while ago, kind of like an in-depth article on what I thought, you know, developing the best stand-up for BJJ would be. And it's kind of like, if I was doing no gi, I would go and wrestle. If I was doing gi, I would do judo, and kind of handpick the bits on there. But then I kind of, I do, and I linking it back to, like, if you're trying to train that stuff for MMA, it's like, well, actually, some of the no-gi jiu-jitsu, it's like all that, but, and this is probably where I wouldn't mind some of the old pride rules coming back. You know, like the beauty of seeing that vein pumping through Vanderlei Silva's head while he was stamping on someone. You know, like that stuff makes a big, big difference. Like, you're not going to do all that butt scooting when someone could kick you in the face while you're on the floor.
It's a great point.
And I don't like watching that. I don't like seeing it. I love watching really two good jiu-jitsu lads go at it. No gi, but kind of when it gets into that butt scooting stuff, I'm kind of like, well, that's very much a specific part of that, of no-gi jiu-jitsu as a sport itself. Like judo, it's like all the really advanced grip fighting and things, you know, that's translatable into gi jiu-jitsu, probably nowhere else.
Probably
nowhere else.
And I like your point of, if you're doing no-gi, what stand-up are you going to you go for wrestling? I think that's a great way to look at it, man. I think that's a phenomenal point. A really, really strong one, dude, actually. And one that I hadn't considered before. I'd almost just assumed that, dependent on where you were, you would decide based off of what you were maybe more interested in. But no, I think that's a really, really good point. That if you're going to do...
I think with the base though, with judo, it's like, do I think judo is the best thing for MMA? Maybe not at the higher level, but at a base, there's not many other sports that encompass, and John Danaher himself said this, he said there's not many other sports that, you know, judo players are very good standing, but they're also competent on the floor. Whereas you look at like, and these are his words, you look at jiu-jitsu and it's like, some of them are very, very good, like extremely good because it's their thing on the floor, but not really competent standing.
100%.
And it's like, well, actually, so you're learning takedowns, you're learning stance, you're learning movement, but you're also learning effective techniques on the floor as well. You know, he's not a close mate of mine, but a lad I have, you know, a little bit of contact with every now and again. Mason Jones, who became the 2-weight Cage Warriors world champion a few weeks ago. So Mason was, you know, he's a former judoka. He was like on the Welsh squad. He got on the British, I think he was British, like under 16 champion. And he talks about in a lot of his interviews, you know, about kind of training judo, and particularly because it's an Olympic sport, the understanding of like training full-time properly, like he trains like an Olympic athlete, but for MMA. You know, and you know, like Mason was born to kind of do that stuff. You could see it in him. Sorry, that's just telling me I've got 10% battery left.
That's right,
yeah, like you could see it in him. You could see it in him when he was young, when he was on the junior team. But he's taken that approach into his MMA, and it's like, I think he only had his first professional MMA fight like 3 or 4 years ago, and it's like now he's 2-weight Cage Warriors world champion and in the UFC. So it does, amazing. You know, I think it's also kind of the attitude of the way judo is trained, because it is the most competitive Olympic sport as well. More countries enter judo in the Olympics than any other sport. Wow. It's a massive worldwide sport, I think, and I think that's what some Brazilian jiu-jitsu players, that, you know, rightly so, because they're Brazilian jiu-jitsu players, not judo players, but they don't understand about judo at that top level. It is so unbelievably competitive.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's super, super interesting. Again, something I wasn't aware of at all, and that's amazing. And I agree with you, dude. When it comes down to it, we're talking about MMA, and we'll kind of wind down after this, but talking about MMA, if you're looking at a base, I agree. If you're looking for somewhere to start, the two that I would put there have always been wrestling and judo. And, you know, based off of what you've just said, yeah, judo seems like to be the one. And I think that's a really great place to kind of wind this down, guys. If you're going to start fighting, go for judo.
Again, I'm not, you know, I haven't done any MMA, so, you know, that's someone that's done a lot of combat sport, but not MMA. That's just the theory, you know. Someone, if you know, a high level MMA coach tells me different, then I'm going to listen to him. So
yeah, of course, no, yeah. You know what, Danny? I'm really interested in your journey going forward, and so we're winding down our first season here, but we would love to have you back as you start. You know, and certainly not to get too close to your effort into the trials of being selected again for the next round of the Olympics, but we'd certainly love to be, you know, able to share your story on how that's going forward, whether it's beforehand or or after or whatever, how that looks. That would be awesome.
I'd love to come back. It's been a brilliant couple of hours, lads. I really enjoyed the conversation. So yeah, I would love to come back on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, dude. It's been an absolute pleasure. Like again, like Tom said, and I'll echo what he said at the beginning. It's an absolute honor to be sat across from a Commonwealth Games gold medalist and an Olympian, and also again, like scoot that stuff. That's accolades. You as a martial artist, I respect you in the amount of work and time that you've put into something that really does take a lot of pride, a lot of passion, and a lot of drive to do so. So man, thank you for, and I'll say as me, thank you so much for being here, dude. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
No, I really enjoyed it, lads. Thank you very much.
I know you've got a blog, you've got
Yeah.
some other things. Shout out anything that you'd like people to follow you on as you continue your journey as an aspiring blog writer and jiu-jitsu practitioner, tattoo, canvas, all of it.
Yeah, so I run a very active blog. I'm posting at minimum fortnightly, but at the moment it's been every week. So that's Danny Williams GBR. So GBR is the kind of the Olympic code for Great Britain. So DannyWilliamsGBR.com, and then I'm on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram under D Williams Judo.
Amazing. Quick note from us then before we end it off. Danny, hang around. We'll just end off the live. Hang around for just 1 sec. Just wanted to say a couple things to you before you go. But guys, for us, as always, we've been Homie and the Dude. We really appreciate you all tuning in. We appreciate the support. If you can, hit us with the Holy Trinity. That's share at least one of our posts, like and follow on Facebook, and subscribe on YouTube. All that stuff allows us to keep having amazing people like Danny on, and it allows us to keep doing this podcast and having fun. We just went over 1,000 likes on Facebook, and that was a huge milestone for us. We really, really appreciate that, and all that support really, really drives us to do more of this, guys. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Danny.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. Right, I'm going to end this live.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Hope you all enjoyed this pod clip. Hit us with the Holy Trinity. Go to our Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, which is at Homie and the Dude. Like, follow, and subscribe to all of those. And thanks again, guys. Have an awesome day.